And we're looking first up for additions and deletions to the agenda. I believe we do have an amendment to our agenda. We have that here. And we need to add, or I guess the request is to add a report from number 6 to a report of office reports and committees. We need a verbal report from the city manager hiring committee. And appointments, consideration of a resolution to reappoint Roxanne Harrington to the Gratiot Water Authority Board. And I think that's just a misprint. It was a misprint in...
It's a Hamilton.
Yes.
I liked Hamilton more, actually.
So did
She would have been
Roxanne.
good.
Yes, people might prefer her.
Roxanne, we could be cousins. That's what my cousin's last name is. You can become my cousin.
Okay, so is there anything else we'd like to add or delete? Hearing none, we'll entertain a motion to accept the agenda as amended.
So moved.
Support.
Motion support, one last chance for comments or questions. Hearing none, all those in favor be yes.
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 Any opposed is no. We have an agenda, thank you. Roll, I presume, has been taken?
Yes.
Okay, next will be the Pledge of Allegiance. Everyone please rise and join us. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you all very much. Next order of business is to entertain a motion on the approval of the December 28th, 2021 regular meeting of this body. Your pleasure.
So moved.
Support.
We had a motion and support. Are there any comments or questions, additions or deletions to those minutes? Hearing none, all those in favor would be yes.
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 Any opposed, no. That motion is carried. Thank you. Communications. First up, we have communications regarding the city manager position.
Move to receive. Support.
Any comments or questions? Hearing none, those in favor be yes.
Yes.
Any opposed be no. We received communications. Thank you very much. Moving to resolutions. First up is consider a resolution to adopt an annual resolution of intent for fiscal year 2023 declaring Alma's Transit intent to provide public transportation services and apply for state financial assistance with this annual plan in accordance to Public Act 51. Your pleasure.
Move to approve.
Support.
Motion support. Any comments or questions from the board or staff? You want some background?
Real quickly, and Brett, jump in if you need to. This is the annual resolution to state that to the state of Michigan we are providing transit services, and that since we're providing those services, that we'll be asking for the monies that are owed to us from the state and federal government. So, anything else I should add to that, Brett?
No, this is just, we do this every year.
Standard.
Okay. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor would be yes, please.
Yes.
Any opposed would be no. Motion is carried. Next, we'll consider adoption of a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute a Michigan Department of Transportation fiscal year 2023 contract clauses certification for the Alma Transit, acknowledging the review of the contract clauses and compliance requirements on behalf of the city of Alma. Your pleasure.
Move approval.
Support.
Any motion and support? Any comments or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor is yes.
Yes.
Any opposed would be no, and the motion is carried. Okay, and agreements. First up, consideration of a resolution authorizing the execution of a project authorization for the fiscal year 2022, Section 5311 operating agreement with the Michigan Department of Transportation, number 2022-0005/P1, regarding the dollar amount for third-party contracts and to authorize the mayor and city clerk to execute the agreement on behalf of the city of Alma. Your pleasure would be.
Move approval.
Support. You have motion support. Any background from staff?
Brett, would you help me out with this one?
Sure, absolutely.
This one I'm not too familiar.
This is just our federal funding from the CARES Act. So this will be additional monies that transit will receive during this fiscal. So this approval would just allow us to receive those monies.
Okay. Does it obligate us in any way? What are the strings attached, I guess, would be my next question.
Just the normal strings. There's no other caveats to this money other than that. Due to this CARES Act money replaces funding that transit agencies have lost due to the coronavirus.
Okay, so this is a replacement of funds, they're just using a different authorization to provide funding.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you for the clarity.
Did we do this last year, or is this?
Anybody else? Okay, with that, all those in favor would be yes?
Yes.
Any opposed would be no, and that motion is carried. Moving down to number 2, consideration of a resolution to authorize the mayor to execute a consent to enter private property form, which will allow the Michigan Department of Environment, Great Lakes, and Energy, which is commonly known as EGLE, to access the city-owned property east of Jerome and to an adjacent Hoffman Road property for the purposes of conducting a Phase 1 environmental site assessment of the property. Your pleasure.
Move approval. Support.
Okay, we have motion support, and Jim, I presume that's why you guys want to go?
there, or?
If you would, please, so we can get you on camera, if you're gonna do it.
Thanks, everybody. Jim Wheeler, Greater Gratiot, just so you officially there. What we've run into, which is the property we refer to as Hoffman Road out there, which was given to the city actually by Valero, that, and actually I think we had 2 would-be inquiries that came through out of a lot of it comes through the MEDC, which is the Michigan Economic Development Corporation. They'll do statewide searches on properties. This is one of them that we're on the very small end, believe it or not, with 163 acres, but it's one that we will get inquiries through them for companies that are looking for sites. One of the main things we're finding anymore, almost as a standard, that you need at least a Phase 1 involved out there. Our prior Phase 1 was having Rick Draper around that worked for Valero that said, everything's okay. So we're kind of thinking, it's okay is a relative term. In any case, Casey went to work and did a good job, got a hold of Eagle and said, hey, we need at least a Phase 1 out here with some environmental assessment, just to give everybody a background of what's there. We have been pretty well assured through Valero that it's been cleaned up. It was given to the city. I started at Greater Gratiot in 2016. It was prior to that. I don't know if you remember exactly when, but it's okay. But it's been a number of years ago. In any case, for us to have this environmental study out there will be helpful for submitting information as we go forward. And and being able to find it and get a grant in order to do it, I think makes good sense for us. So don't see anything that's going to be alarming or comes to date. Eagle knows we own it and everything else. It's just really what's out there, and we need the background for that. So makes a lot of sense to have that, but we need to authorize them to grant them permission to be able to go on the property, which people go on the property, I think, anytime anyway, but they want to be official with
Yeah,
it.
it's not fenced off.
It's not fenced in any way or something along that line of it.
Questions? And I guess I have one that I was rather surprised to see this, because I would have assumed that we would have gotten a Phase 1 before we accepted the property all those years ago.
Yeah.
It really kind of surprises me that we just took our parcel,
Yeah,
took somebody's word for it.
It's
that,
there.
hey, it's clean, right?
It's there. So from that standpoint, there is some deed restrictions on the property of what can be used for in the future, and so there's a few other pieces of it that make it a little more even difficult for us to market. There are two big gas lines that transfers for consumers, right? Kind of angling through it if you're familiar with the property. Whoops. I just broke. Hey, you won't be able to do your presentation.
You got me out of it, thank you.
You got that, yeah, you're lucky. And sorry about that. In any case, so we have none on file, although the Eagle, can't refer to him as DEQ anymore, has a lot of substantive background on all the things that Valero's done and clean up and all the different parcels that they have, not only here, but even Mount Pleasant and some other areas, Greg. So, but yeah, standard-wise, there really was a kind of a little more void of information that's there, but
Yeah. So we did a complete search looking for anything we had in the past that,
Yeah, we did do, before we purchased those 2 residential properties that were out there,
Yeah.
we purchased those. we did do phase one before we took ownership
Yeah.
of those two parcels. So that will be part of this, submitting that information to the
Correct.
consultant they have, but no, we don't
First
have.
data points for them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some of it, and also Jim, if I misspoke, when we do meet with folks on site, obviously they are very concerned about,
Right.
where, not just the parcel itself, but how the parcels around it may be interacting with the parcel that's there.
Right.
So this will be part of that.
Yeah, it
stuff.
gives you a better flow of it from that standpoint. Eventually, it probably would even expand the scope of it a little bit, but this will at least give us some background along those lines of it. But it's a good piece of development property. I mean, we have, great access for power along the lines of it, great access to the highway, good class roads along the line of it. So it's got a lot of good parts of it. I mean, the creek that goes through, it's not, you'd like to move the creek sometime or a few other things, but we won't get into that right now. But for the most part, it has some pretty good attributes that make it, definitely a marketable piece of property. Consumers Energy right now also has it in one of their site-ready build things because of the gas and power that's there. Probably our shortest fall on it would be a sewer from there, but if we ever ran into something that needed that kind of sewer, it would be a sizable enough project that we could go out and get some funding in order to make that happen too. So it's a good site to have available, but this is just one of these pieces. And part of it also is we're starting to get more and more questions, like some geological studies and some others. So I got a feeling we're going to have a little more of a laundry list, and we keep looking for dollars in order to do it, so it doesn't cost the city anything to have it right now, or at least as minimal as possible with it from there.
Okay. Great. Anybody else have questions? All right, thank you, Jim.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Stacy, appreciate your work. Okay, with that, we do have a motion on the table, I believe. So, your pleasure. All those in favor would be yes.
Yes.
Any opposed would be no. Okay, looks like that is passed. Moving down to J, we have reports of officers, boards, and committees. Commissioners may receive the following reports by one resolution, or any commissioner may remove any of the items within the section for individual discussion and votes. And we have reports from the police department, I guess the police department monthly report as well as their annual report, the transit center December report, the annual building permit report, the interim city manager's report, and the added report, which is a verbal report from the city manager hiring committee. It's your pleasure.
Move to receive 1 through 4, pulling the,
City manager.
city manager
And the hiring committee.
and the hiring committee.
Okay.
Support.
So we had a motion to support. Any comments or questions? Hearing none. Those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed would be no. And that is passed. Now we'd entertain a motion for the last two, and we'll discuss the reports at that point.
So moved.
Support.
A motion to support. Okay, begin with the discussion. First up, Eric. You wanna-
Yeah, sure. Along the same road, same property area, Jerome Road lease, we talked about that last city commission meeting. Like it was mentioned, that $340 that's currently in the lease that we have and we're looking to renew, that does just cover the taxes on that 10-acre parcel. Speaking with the city assessor, one thing that we thought about and we put in here in the newsletter was that we could look at prorating that 3,360 square feet of the cold storage building and put the taxes on that and then put that over the period of the lease for that piece of the building. Also, this parcel is in Pine River Township, so talking with the assessor and maybe look at classification of that parcel too, because we don't rent out any of the rest of that parcel whatsoever. It's just the cold storage building itself. So it is quite a tax bill just to have it there. The current leasee is paying for the utilities, the gas and the heat that's in there and the electricity. So, but if we wanted to bring that back to you before I reach out to the leasee to see if they'd be willing, we get a number for the taxes for that 3,360 square feet and see if that was amenable to put that onto the monthly cost of the land lease. So just wanted to see what everyone thought here before we reach out to them.
Any questions? Yes, one thing that comes to my mind immediately is why don't we just annex the thing? bring that property into the city and we won't have to deal with the township any longer.
Well, it might be part of that 425 agreement that they have out there with Pine River. That might be part of it. Is it part of that, Jim?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
It will eventually come in. It's part of the 425, right?
So, do we know the timing? That's probably too detailed at this point, but
Have another
I guess we
time.
need to look into the timing of that and,
Okay, I can do that, but it's a ways out.
Yeah.
It'd be, usually it's triggered by development.
That's what that one is, if I remember right, Jim, is if that's developed, then it becomes a part of the city limits. If we're talking about east of Jerome Road.
Yeah.
Region,
Yeah.
yes. That's how it's worded.
so the whole 160 acres is that way?
I believe that's the way it is,
Yeah.
yes.
Triggered
But
by
I'll,
development, okay.
but I'll get a copy of that and share it, get it
Right.
for the commission to take a look at.
And maybe if we can figure out what constitutes development as well, get some definitions out there.
But yeah, in the meantime, is that something that's amenable to
Yes, for me.
everyone, or?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm not in favor of losing money on the deal, that's for sure.
Because right now, it's covering our taxes at least, but it would be nice to get the
There should
taxes
be,
for the building
there should be
itself.
some
so-
value on that building
Yeah, there is.
beyond the taxes that we're paying on it.
Okay, next one, the transit update. It's come to our attention, Mdot has completed their FY 2018 local bus operating audit, final audit. And it's determined that they did pay Alma Transportation an overpayment of $43,713. I do have Marilyn here from the accounting staff of the transportation center, has reviewed this request and spoken with MDOT about it. Looks like we owe it back. They overpaid us, but I wanted to bring this to your attention before putting on the agenda for the request for repayment. And like I said, Marilyn's here to kind of explain and answer any questions you may have about this request from the state of Michigan. Well, it's not really a request, when we have to
It is
pay it
right
back.
now.
We have to, yes, it is right now. So, Marilyn, do you?
Okay, so this is the final piece of the grant, and they have overpaid us. It can happen, I don't think it's going to happen in 2020 or 2021, but back in 2018, when the books weren't closed timely and we did our reports, the city has a year end of 6/30 and the state has a year end of 9/30, so sometimes there's a timing difference in when we record our expenditures in what year. And at that time, we must have over-reported our expenditures, so they paid us our revenue, and now, after the final reconciliation goes through, and for Mdot, it's a statewide process with all the transit agencies, they determined that we owe $42,000 back, and it is legitimate. We do owe them. So,
This is for 2019?
The FY
2018.
18.
Yeah, FY 2018.
We're not that uptight.
Yeah, yeah.
So 19 would be coming still, 2019?
They're
19
finalizing.
should be close. You know, in 19, we did have to pay $3,600 back on because what happens, they do their initial reconciliation, and then, because we have a 9/30 year end, then they do a second reconciliation, and then they do a final reconciliation. And it takes a number of years for them to get to the final, because they're waiting for all the transit agencies to turn in their audits. And
Those percentages change as well, right?
yeah, the percentages can change, because it's based on eligible expenditures. So if one transit agency underreports, at each phase, then it adjusts the revenue across everybody else.
So if we over-reported over-reported our expenses in 18, it seems like it would wash into 19, that we would have then under-reported in 19, and that correction should be occurring that point. Is that not true?
Probably not. It's just not how it works. Because with this 2020 or 2021 audit, I just reported on 2020. So it's just what information you have at your fingertips when you're doing those reports. So when our audit reports weren't done timely, it probably made it more difficult to report back then. You know, and it just depends on what information was available. The city is on a 6/30 year end, and then the state is on a 9/30 year end. So some of the steps that you would do to do your 6/30 financial statements, Audit Transit, we do the same thing for the 9/30 financial statements. We go through and we portion the expenditures between the cutoff of up to 9/30 and then after 10/1. I think 2019 should be pretty close because we already had an issue and I already verified the expenditures for that. I don't know why the state was behind with 2018, but
I guess I'm still struggling with why if something was disallowed to be, allowed to be included in the 18, why those expenses wouldn't then be allowed to be included in your 19 budget or your 19 reporting.
overall, over all the fiscal years, at some point, the expenditures get recorded.
Okay.
So I'm not worried about that. They don't allow certain pension expenditures and the RTAP grant, which is like $5,500. And there's just certain things they don't allow. They're usually not material, but really.
But that's a different issue than a disallowed expense, or if we reported an expense that's not allowed, is a different issue than the timing of the allowable expense to me. And maybe I don't understand it correctly.
Alice, you want me to, I can maybe give a little more clarity on this?
Okay.
So likely what happened is there's a set percentage that they are going to fund you every month. The city receives these payments. That is based on some calculation they do. We don't really know where it comes from. It's their percentage. So you get this pot of money, right? And then you spend what you need to spend on your transit operations. So let's say the percentage they're going to give you is 15% of eligible expenditures. And let's say you actually spend $100,000. So they should give you, if it's apples to apples, $15,000. Well, sometimes they actually will give you more money. They might have given you $30,000 during the year when you only should have gotten $15,000. And so that's where the discrepancy is. So they've actually given the city more money than they should have. But they don't want to do that true up on a monthly basis. So they do it over their fiscal year. So that's how you can get large paybacks. Sometimes you might actually get more money too, though. If they have extra money in the pot, they'll then divvy that back out also.
Because we actually got that one year. We actually did get more money one year at the end. It's a lot more fun that way. But
It does make it hard. I do try to make sure.
Clearly.
Yeah,
I get it.
Mdot to a T too, it really is. And that's why she is invaluable to us out at Transit to try to, she speaks that language a whole lot more than what I do, so.
Okay.
But Ally, that's why, because I think Greg, your question was why wouldn't it carry over? That's why it doesn't carry over.
Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. Because you've spent what you've spent.
Right.
You only get a portion of that in the funding.
Okay.
And I was trying to make things logical, so.
Yeah.
God forgive me.
No, I was on the same page as you were,
Yeah.
but then it belongs over here then, doesn't
Yeah.
it? So like,
Yeah, so.
I can see.
Thank you, I appreciate the explanation and the education there. It's, I sort of assumed that we submit our expenses and our repayment is based on that, but why would that work? Okay, so thank you. I'll be quiet about that.
No, I just wanted to get that, because that is such a large sum to pay back. I just wanted to have some discussion with it.
Yeah, it's nice to know a little bit more about how it works and where it's going.
Thank you, Marilyn, thank you, Anna.
Yes, thank you.
So much for normally accepted accounting.
East Peoria Christian Church, the pastor reached out to us here this last week. They're looking to do a seal coating project and restriping. And so I was wondering if we'd like to participate in that. We use their parking lot regularly. Like today, we had 9 cars, our staff parking over there and that. So when we went dug out the agreement, obviously the agreement was expired as of 2015. And the pastor was very, very cordial. Dave has been working on the type of project they needed to do and that sort of thing. So it's just a seal coat and a striping at this point. But in there was, we share in the cost at 61.5%. I don't know where the 61.5% came from, but that was what is in the agreement. Even though the agreements expired in 2015, we have continued to use the parking lot, and they haven't said anything, and we have continued to snowplow the parking lot for them as per the agreement that is there, but it's expired. So anyway, they reached out and asked if we'd like to go in half on the seal coat and striping. It's, from a staff standpoint, it sounds like a pretty good deal because obviously we need the parking, we need the overflow. And also at the same time, its timing is pretty good because we do need to reseal our parking lot back here on the back lot and to the west. So we could put those together and maybe get a better price out for it. So we'd like to just see if that's something that we're able to work with them on, like cost of 50/50 on that with the parking lot. Their parking lot here just east of the building. And also, the parking lot is needed for our use for staff and for visitors. We'd like to engage them in negotiating a new an agreement with them, if that's something that the commission would like to do. The only option if we want to build more parking is to push the parking lot we have out west further to the west, but we run into problems, we're in the floodplain and there's other
I think
things
the
that-
cost would be cheaper to go in on ceiling.
It would be, but that's the only place we could
Building
build
a
extra
new parking
parking
lot.
is to the west there, so.
Because normally, just meetings or fires.
Yes, and we do have folks who park over there and do their business at the police department. We have folks that come in with fix-it tickets, they park there quite a bit, and the officers meet them over there to take a look at the headlight or whatever it may be. So if everyone's.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea to continue the relationship. It's a benefit to both of us. I didn't see a problem with doing it. My question came to my mind was, we plow it. We do that 7 days a week, or are we doing that?
No, it's basically as needed.
It's an as-needed basis, so if it's the weekend, we aren't plowing it because we don't plow ours unless we get too much, 4 inches or more is when we would be activated to plow ours out back for our purposes, but it's when we're plowing our city parking lots is when we plow that.
Okay, so, they obviously, I presume their primary need is Sunday morning. Do we go in and plow it for them on Sunday mornings if it snows on Saturday night?
If it needs,
Is that part of the
if it qualifies for our plowing for the for our parking lots, yes. I cannot tell you if they have somebody come in, like say Sunday morning and plow it. If they think it needs it, then I don't know.
But we don't plow the other side.
No, just this one along Superior
Yeah,
Street.
'cause they have that
So if they
parking.
have somebody come in, say 6 o'clock before Sunday service, like I'm just pulling out a number or a time, on Sunday morning, I don't know if they have somebody that comes in ahead of time to do it, but I do know that we have that as a part of our regular plowing schedule for our city parking lots, so we treat it.
Okay, and my only history with that is the church I was a member of used to have a similar arrangement with the schools because it was near the old middle school site. And the school would plow that lot, but only Monday through Friday because they didn't do it on weekends. So I don't know if we're doing it 7 days a week, I think it has different consideration than if we're only doing it 5 days a week. And if we're not doing it on the one day they need it, obviously that doesn't have much value to them, or not nearly as much value as it would if we were doing the Saturday night plow. So in the negotiations or arranging the agreement, that needs to be a topic or addressed, should be addressed, I would think, in there.
Sure.
Anybody else have comments or questions?
For my clarification, would the commission be amenable then to lumping those 3 projects together for the seal coat and striping and then paying, according to the agreement, the percentage? Does that?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, I just want to make sure because I could
Should
work
be
on
lower
getting
than-
that out for bid because I know they're looking at wanting to do it this summer and things, so at least to communicate with them to let them know that we're okay with it and proceed forward.
Did we redo the parking lot out back?
That
That was
was,
falling
Back
apart a
about,
few years ago.
back about 7 years ago, 8 years
Has it
ago.
been that long?
Yeah.
Okay.
Time
In my
flies.
mind, it was still falling apart, we hadn't done it yet.
it was,
so-
no, it was in bad shape.
Yeah.
We redid it, yeah.
I don't go back there very often, so I don't recall what it looks like.
Okay.
I just didn't want to put seal coat over it.
Yeah, no,
Gravel, you know.
yeah, that would be more of a. Yeah, that wouldn't be good. The neighborhood street Sealcoat program, back in 2020, the contractor couldn't make it in to do the work. So last year for 2021, the commission approved an extension with the cost provided by that contractor to do the work in 2021. There was a material shortage, so they did not get in this year to do that either. But they are gonna hold our price to get those roads those 3 roads that we had for 2021 to get done, Valley, Penrith, and Marquette. But they've reached out to Dave and asked, since we have these 3 next streets scheduled for Sealcoat, West End, Walnut, and Allen. He reached out to us if he would like to expand on that contract we currently have with them to include those 3 roads at the price that they had in 2020. Obviously, that would be an addition, an amendment to the contract we have with them for the roads that were supposed to be done in 2021 to add these for 2022. The cost would be, right now, we're looking at for what we were going to do last year, $37,275, and that's 10,500 square yards of seal coat and fog seal. And those 3 that we're proposing, the West End, the Walnut, and the Allen portions, that is 11,000 square yards of seal coat and fog. And underneath that pricing from 2020, that would run us $39,000 even roughly.
Approximately.
So, since we do have to do this project, we're looking at doing this project anyway this year with those 3 streets, we brought it to the commission to discuss the possibility of just extending the contract with these 3 roads and rolling it in as pricing from 2020. So, is that the gist of it, Dave?
Yeah, this was the contractor that did them in 2020, if you remember. And back early last spring, the commission decided to extend that contract because we have that option. He said he could hold that price from 2020 into 2021 due to everything under the sun that you can imagine from 2021, material shortage and timing. Alma's not a big enough project, as you can imagine, when you've got Mdot projects lined up. So the Mdot ones take precedent that have to get done. And you've only got about a good 2.5 months, if you're lucky, 3 months to do seal coating. You can't do it when it's blazing hot, and you can't do it when it's cold, so you've only got a finite amount of days to do it. So they were not able to do the 2021 scheduled streets. He said in order to hold those prices, because the prices have gone up right now on average 30%, he can hold those prices if the city commission is so inclined to add additional streets to the 2021 project. Seems like it makes sense to me, because what I would look at it is combining 2 years into one, because they already have to go out for bid again if we were going to do that for the next 3 streets as you see on that list. So I look at it as combining 2 years into one project and with 2-year-old prices, and that seems like a pretty fair price to me and an offer. And then if we do move forward with this, they have us scheduled for June, one of the first rounds to do it, to get it done this year, because they were not able to this last season, because they are working on a project about 40 miles north of us, so they can get to us in June. That I've been assured of. So, but obviously want to make sure that the commission is okay with it before we bring an agreement back next meeting for approval. Wanted to get you guys in the gist of what was talked about, what we're looking at doing.
Thank you. Questions?
We would also, is this with the seal coating of the parking lot next door is also going to?
No, this is strictly roads, Act 51
Okay.
roads.
Okay.
If you could remind me, and I forget, with COVID and everything,
Yes.
everything construction related, in fact, most all raw materials, any materials of any kind, took a huge price spike, which is one thing we got caught up with in our restrooms in the parks. The price just shot up astronomically. So is this price from 2020 prior to that spike?
Yes. This was 2020 prices, and if you watched during 2020, you had everybody shut down, da-da-da-da-da. In 2021, you started to see, in my experience, early 2020, late 2020, early 2021, material shortages. We saw that all throughout 2021. I would anticipate we're gonna see a portion of that into 2022 that we're in, but I can't project that at this point because we won't know until we start getting into construction season. The other part of the reason why they weren't able to get to us, if you look at last summer, there was a number of rain days too, so that does throw things off. And with Sealcoat, you have to have a dry surface. You can't have a certain amount of moisture content, and I mentioned the temperatures, so a lot of those factor into it. So when it's difficult to schedule, you've got all that coming together. And when you've got the big projects, that's what they were looking at doing this last year with the days that they had available.
Okay, very good. Sounds like a good idea to me, yeah. I mean,
That's something we'll
I mean,
have a
everybody feels differently.
Yeah.
Now's the time to speak up and give them the right direction.
I'm on board.
Certainly we protect and try to preserve what we have.
Well, and at the 2020 prices, that is a good, I was looking around and we're looking at 30 to 35% increases in Sealcoat costs if we put them back out. So, and if this gets us on the docket for first thing in the summer, I view this as 2 wins for us if we can get it going. So.
Always makes me nervous when the price isn't that good though, if it's 30% less than anybody else.
Because I'm buying it in bulk.
Yeah.
Bigger rate. Number 2 is because they couldn't get to us last year, to try to hold his prices, not eat too much into the profit, if you can give me more bulk, that's why we're looking at the combined
price.
years. Exactly.
That always makes me nervous.
That's why I want to get it in writing too, but
It's
we're
too
talking
good to-
here
too good to
tonight
be true.
first.
Yeah, that's why we'll have a contract.
Yeah.
Bring that to you guys.
Yeah, I presume the contract specifies materials and quality and all kinds of,
Yeah, if I
Milestones in there
if I
that-
could get other prices to hold for 2020, we'd all be great, but
okay,
it's not the case, but yes.
very good, thank you.
And just some good news stuff. I'd like to recognize 3 promotions in the Alma District Fire Department. Tim Snyder has been promoted to captain, Chad Pratt to first lieutenant, and Corey Irvin to lieutenant. So just wanted to bring that to everybody's attention. Long-term firefighters and be there a little bit longer. So we thank them for taking on the responsibility.
Okay. Any more questions or comments? Okay, next, I think the motion included both of them, so we'll entertain our verbal report from the hiring committee.
I was gonna look
Mr.
at you.
Piccolo? Oh.
We met yesterday with Sherry and talked a little bit about next steps. We discussed the idea of exploring using a search firm, seeing if that's of value for us to do. The reason was we found that in terms of time, they may be able to do that better. The other part was sometimes search firms have a number of candidates that are in their pool that aren't necessarily actively seeking, but they might be able to match them better. As we look at what they do, one of the things that might be useful is just have them talking to individuals, commissioners or folks about, what are you looking for? I think we can, no matter who's in that role, we set them up for success if we're clear on what we want. And that might be a good way to find that out, and probably they would be better, an external agency would be better positioned to do that than internal. So that, not a commitment, but we'd like to just explore that, that's where we are. Is that, do you have anything to add?
No, very, very good. I think it was well said, and I think the idea, one of the ideas that I kind of liked was, from an outside perspective, where we have to do so much of these first steps in private with just a small committee because of Open Meetings Act, and we certainly want to, comply with everything that's required there, but an outside firm could actually interview all of the commissioners individually, or at least in small enough groups that we wouldn't violate any open meetings requirements, and get more opinions across the board and perhaps a little more efficiently, like Nick said. So that is perhaps the next direction that we would like to explore, unless the rest of the group feels that we shouldn't do that and we just want to go back to market or whatever direction that anybody else wants to bring up here. So we're looking for input from everybody else, I believe.
And to add,
Roxanne?
just to add that one of the things about bringing search firms in to discuss with them was not that we're agreeing at this point to pay someone. It was as much to bring someone in and kind of get a lay of what the city of Alma perhaps looks like to the outside world and glean some information that way. But we're not committing to paying someone.
I'd like to see what they have to offer,
Right.
what kind of programs they have to offer, so.
And I would imagine what you guys, once you make a decision, or maybe a recommendation, let's go in this direction,
Yes.
bring it back.
Yeah, they would have to come back here to be, before we'd actually contract with it.
And we'll be glad to talk to folks about, here's folks we're talking to. You can go, they usually, on their websites, are gonna have a customer list, you would know. You probably don't wanna call the city manager, because they hire them, but you might wanna call, if you know someone who's a commissioner there, that kind of thing. So try to be as transparent as we can with that.
Any other questions or comments from anybody? Thoughts? Okay. So with that, we do have a motion on the table for the two reports that we just received. All those in favor of receipt would be a yes.
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 Any opposed would be no. Motion is carried. Okay, thank you very much. Moving on to appointments, consideration of a resolution to reappoint Roxanne Harrington to the Gratiot Area Water Authority Board for a 2-year term expiring January 11th, 2024. Your pleasure.
So moved.
Support.
Motion and support. Any comments or questions from anybody except Roxanne?
Unless Roxanne.
All those in favor say yes.
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 Any opposed would be no. Congratulations and thank you, Roxanne. I know you
Yes.
have agreed prior to this nomination that you would serve again, so we appreciate your work on that board.
You're welcome.
Next up would be consideration of a resolution to reappoint Craig Zeese to the Alma Housing Commission for a 5-year term expiring December 31, 2026.
Move approval.
Support.
Motion support. And Mr. Zeese is not here to say otherwise, so is he aware of this?
Yes,
Okay.
yep, yes, he is.
And he has agreed to serve with that
Yes,
5 years
yes.
as well? Okay.
He's been a
Again, I appreciate
long-term,
that.
long-term member
Yeah.
of that board.
An overall supporter of the community. and everything,
Oh, yeah.
so. Great guy, so. Anybody else have any comments or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed would be no. We have reappointed Mr. Zeese, and thank you, Craig, for that, and your willingness to serve. Let's see. Oh, we did that, okay, so next up is new business, presentation of the fiscal year 2021 comprehensive annual financial report by Ellie Barnes from Yo and Yo.
I'd love to sit through it.
Sure, especially you guys with Lakewood?
Discretion is just when it's getting in.
Yeah,
Thank you.
they're going home to watch it on TV later, I'm sure.
She sat through theirs.
Yeah.
I'll harass them more tomorrow. All right, well, thank you for having me to talk about the 6/30/2021 audit results. This will have some positive feedback for you related to city finances and the finance department for you, as opposed to maybe some of the negative only in the past couple of years. So I'm gonna attempt to, I don't know, Jim said he broke this and I think he might be right.
Hold on.
Oh, I see it, okay, all right, well, we'll try. All right, so the city commission hires us to come in and audit your financial statements and then give you an opinion on those statements. And so the city has received an unmodified or clean audit opinion on the financial statements. So that's excellent news. Just to give you a little background and context for what this audit looked like versus the prior year audit. In the previous year, we had 53 audit adjustments as a part of the process. We didn't come to the commission until a few months down the road. The audit was reported late to the state, and this year the audit was filed on time. So an excellent job by the finance team here on making sure that that deadline could be met. It really makes it easier for the city to ensure that your funding will keep coming without interruption. You usually end up getting all of your funding, but when it's late, then sometimes you have to fight to actually receive those dollars. So this year, and we'll talk about it when we get to some of the findings, there were some audit adjustments, but 18 this year versus 53 in the previous year. So a lot fewer issues this year. Let's not, again, I gotta try this way. It just doesn't like the keyboard. All right, we will talk about some of the numbers and then we'll get into some of the internal control areas. So here you can see general fund. I gave you 3 years of information to look at. These are your revenues and kind of your main categories. And some unusual caveats that we wouldn't normally see because of the issues in the previous fiscal year. So you'll see that taxes look like it was pretty flat for the 2 prior fiscal years and then jumps up. While in reality, if some of the recording and receiving of funds had happened correctly in 2020 fiscal year, you'd really see that as kind of just a steady line up. So it didn't really jump that high. It's just because of a timing issue of when you had to record that revenue. A similar issue when you look at the intergovernmental category there, there was state revenue sharing that because of a timing difference, again, money that should have been reported in 2020 couldn't be and was therefore reported in 2021. So that accounts for a portion of that blue, light blue bar there. And then also this year in general fund, there was about $260,000 in federal dollars that was reported in that fund. I don't know if there was any federal revenue reported in 2020. So some of that intergovernmental category is in fact new revenue. And then in your charges for services, you'll see that increase pretty significantly. That is a result of closing out one of your internal service funds and now recording that activity all within the general fund. So we're gonna see when we look at expenditures that there are some expenditures that increased. Here is where you can see the revenue increasing to kind of offset that. All right, on the expenditure side then, community safety is the largest category of expenditures for your general fund. You'll see that has been trending up. A good portion of the increase this year is related to COVID dollars. So there was grant money that could be used for some community safety expenditures, and so that's why we're seeing some of that increase there. You'll notice property maintenance costs have been decreasing over the past couple of years. On the recreation and cultural side, from 19 to 20, there was a decrease in what was spent there, and then again, a decrease from 2020 to 21. A more significant decrease in that window, and that is due to no contribution being made during the fiscal year to the library. And in the previous year, there had been roughly $175,000 contributed to the library. So that's the impact of that. Under the executive administration category, overall, an increase in expenditures if you look at 2019 versus 2021. The 2020 column there is where you made the additional $250,000 payment to MERS. So that's going to be an unusual item there. And then when we get to this fiscal services category, this increase in expenditure here is related to the closeout of that internal service fund. So we see revenues go up and we see expenditures go up as that activity moves into this particular fund. All right, so our difference then between our revenues and expenditures gives us an increase or a decrease in fund balance. You'll see for this fiscal year, there was an increase in fund balance. A little deceiving, again, because of those timing issues from the previous year. So to give you some context, for 2020, there should have been approximately $450,000 additional sitting in fund balance. Had revenue items been received on time, your fund balance would have looked higher here. So there wasn't a for accounting purposes, there was a drop in fund balance, but the way you think of fund balance, there really wasn't that significant drop. Likewise, there's not as significant of an increase from 2020 to 2021. It's just smoothing out those timing differences. But overall, fund balance is up from 2019. So you have about 318,000 of that is in non-spendable form, mostly related to prepaid type expenditures. And then there's roughly 3.4 million in unassigned or unrestricted fund balance.
So is that unrestricted, does that include any caveats that we might have for bonding issues? Or reserves, or?
Not in the general fund,
Okay.
nope. All right, switch gears and talk about two of your larger enterprise funds. Here's information for the wastewater utility fund. So that top line represents the total net position within that fund, which is roughly 7.8 million. And then of that, about 2.6 million is actually held in cash and investments. And in this fund, these two are both trending up. So you definitely have some working capital available to use should you need it. Then if we, so surprised. If we take a look at the water utility fund though, we'll see that really net position and the cash and investments has been holding relatively steady. You're not seeing that kind of trending up like you're seeing in wastewater. So about 5.7 million in net position and about 2.87 million in cash and investments at the end of June. And just for those that are curious, when there's really large dips, honestly, sometimes I have to put these notes on here so I remember because 2017 was a long time ago. But you used to record an equity interest in the Gratiot Area Water Authority due to how that agreement was written and the accounting rules. In 2018, that investment in that joint venture was removed from this fund. So that's why you see the net position decrease quite a bit, but really not a significant change in cash and investments. To give you kind of a look, I'm not very good at scrolling. To give you a look at the long-term obligations, the first category there is your bonds and notes. So at the end of June, you were down to just over 5 million in total bonds and notes outstanding. So you'll see you have been trending down, paying off the debt that is there. Pretty minimal amounts in compensated absences, so that's leave time that your employees have earned but haven't been paid out for. We don't generally expect to see that fluctuate much, so that's right on expectation. Net pension liability, you'll see fell this year below 6 million. So it's been trending downwards for a couple years. A lot of that is due to the good market at the end of 2020 when the valuation report was done, and I'm assuming you'll probably see this dip again for the next round of valuations also. All right, we'll get into some of the internal control items. As I mentioned previously, this audit did go much better. There were a lot fewer issues, but there are still some. So we did have some audit adjustments. Oops. Like I said, 18 this year versus 53 in the prior year, so a significant reduction. There were only 3 adjustments this time that were material versus a lot of the 50 were material last time. So getting down to 3 is awesome. It really is. I know if you were hoping for a absolutely clean, no deficiency report, that wasn't realistic. All of the accounting issues didn't happen overnight, and it's going to take a little while to fix, but the team is doing a great job. And so those material entries, really 2 of them were related to the city processes payroll for the Housing Commission and for the Water Authority. And because those aren't true expenditures of the city, there was some issues with the accounting to kind of clean up and really make those just pass-through transactions where they're just hitting your balance sheet versus coming in as revenues and expenditures. And this did not impact the general fund. These were in separate funds. And then the other material entry related to the utility billing receivable and a portion of unbilled that needed to get booked back. So we have met with Curtis and his team, and they're very on board with how this is supposed to work, and are making adjustments to make this not be an issue in the future. The second material weakness related to a prior period adjustment. So in a previous reporting period, there was actually a project that was administered by the state for the airport. And so they did a capital improvement project. They ran it all, they paid for it all, but the city actually owns the assets in the end. And so that grant and those assets should have been recorded on the city's books, and they weren't. And so this adjustment was found, I think maybe by Marilyn. This was not something we found, it was something internally you found. And so it was made to kind of true everything up and correct it going forward. This is an issue we see many places. You're not special with this one. Anytime the state administers a grant, it's a lot easier for it to get missed and the right information to not get communicated to the finance department so they can do their job and get that recorded. The third one relates to written federal procedures. So uniform guidance, which came out a number of years ago, maybe 5+ years ago, requires that entities that receive federal dollars have to have written procedures. This has been a repeat finding for several years now. There was a good faith attempt to rectify this finding, but the right thing wasn't done. So back to the drawing board to work on that. It was a pretty minimal kind of written explanation for some of what was needed, but something more comprehensive needs to be put together, and we have provided an example for Curtis to kind of get going with so he doesn't have to reinvent the wheel. All right, last item on here is something we consider to be a significant deficiency and non-compliance. So the general fund this year in total spent about $88,000 more than the total amount budgeted by the commission. So within certain categories, you may not have overspent, but when we look at the budget in total, there were over expenditures of $88,000. So just a reminder to really watch that budget. You know, because of all the issues in the prior year and still so much cleanup work, I'm not surprised that this one happened. I think the finance team will have a much better feel for the year-end budget amendments as they continue to discover different things that need to get accrued back. They will have a better idea of what numbers to bring to the commission for your final budget resolutions. Any questions on those before I move to the next slide?
That was a lot shorter this year.
It was a lot shorter, yes.
And much more pleasant.
Yes, all of our blood pressures aren't rising over here like they did last year.
No, like I said, I think really tremendous progress has been made. It's taken a lot of documentation on Curtis and his team's part and on our part to go through and look at each of those findings that we've had and really figure out, okay, was it fixed, was it not fixed, what's the support for that? So good progress. So we did issue a governance letter, which is required for us to do. Within that, we did have a couple of management comments. The first one is related to the library fund. So at the end of June, after all the accrual accounting was done, that fund actually has a net position unrestricted deficit of about $55,000. Now, previously on the general fund expenditure slide, I had noted that there was a $175,000 contribution that was made in previous years that wasn't made for this year. So had that contribution been made this year, then this deficit would not have existed. So this is going to be an area you're going to want to look at and decide, you know, how much funding you need to be probably contributing to the library to ensure that they are not in a deficit. What that number is, I could not tell you right now, but definitely something to keep an eye on. The second one is relatively minor, but it is a compliance issue. So the city is required to file the municipal finance qualifying statement annually, and this had not been done for the previous period that we have to take a look at. I believe it was filed now and on time, so this will not be an issue going forward for the next fiscal year. And then just overall, in our larger material weakness findings in the previous years, we've talked a lot about the overall control environment at the city and kind of how did you end up where you ended up. And so this comment really talks about the fact that there were a lot of improvements made, but obviously if we still had 18 adjustments, we still had some material adjustments, there's still some more work to do. So just to stay cognizant that, just because you've made some progress doesn't mean you stop here. There's still more work to do. And I think, the finance team is probably going to continue to uncover things for a couple of years, would be my guess. It seems to take 3 to 5 years really to get to a truly clean audit once you've kind of been in the situation that you were in. So just to, stay on your toes and make sure that continues to happen. And that is what I have. A really big thank you to Curtis and Marilyn. They did a tremendous amount of work, and the others in the finance department also. The audit because there's still issues that everyone's working their way through, it takes several weeks to get done, and they were really diligent about staying on top of our request. That's something that hasn't always happened in the past. If they couldn't get to something right away, they did let us know, we're looking into this, we need some more time. So communication like that was really appreciated, and they were really great to work with and have a lot of confidence in what they'll continue to do.
Thanks, Ellie.
Thank you, Ellie.
Anybody have questions?
Curtis, how long have you worked for the city?
Just over a year. Started mid-November.
Feels like longer.
Very good year you've had. Marilyn's been here how long? Like,
You've hit 6 months yet, right? Yeah, she's at 6 months.
yeah. So you guys did a good job in your first year.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I mean, the average person doesn't understand how bad this was. I mean, this wasn't just bad last year. This has been bad for a number of years. We've been trying to solve this. So I can't tell you how pleased I am, Curtis, for you and your team. Noting what you've accomplished in this last year, you're working your people to death. I mean, I want to get this all cleaned up, and I'd love to have perfect audits, nice clean audits, that'd be great, but we don't want to kill you and your team in the process either, so.
It's been a lot, but we knew there'd be a lot of cleanup. I mean, really, I'm the only one in the department, well, Deb is now too, but I'm the only one that is salaried, so everybody else is working. I mean, I'm sure Marilyn probably does stuff that she doesn't tell me she's working, but she's not gonna say that out loud, but, I mean.
And she better not be doing that. Nobody in the city is working off the clock. That needs to be paid
I
by the hour.
was just joking.
That is,
But, yes, no, we definitely, I will not discredit the hard work that we've done, but we also knew it was an investment to get it cleaned up, and if we get it done, get it right, it's gonna be smooth going forward, so it's probably myself more than the rest of the team has put in a lot in the last 6 months, and obviously Marilyn's been awesome, and we've probably taken a little bit more of Brett's time than what I initially intended, but we've done a great job, and like I said, the whole team, I mean, even bringing on Madison is just she's kind of started off as just kind of an intern doing clerical work, and we've upgraded her to doing quite a bit of stuff too, and she's been fantastic for us, but I can't talk her into working full-time yet. But, I mean, and Amy and Beth, everybody, we couldn't have done it without everybody, so I definitely owe it to them. But
so our appreciation to the team, I mean, I remember last year, I don't think we had any confidence that we could get a bank reconciliation done, which is a pretty basic component of what's going on or what needs to happen. So tremendous strides. Thank you very much.
This feels really good.
Yeah.
This has been a scary time for us when we had to have Ellie come and talk to us.
Ellie's like, here wasn't enjoyable for me.
No, it had nothing to do with you, but I mean, wondering if we were gonna get state funding in some things, and, you know, if we were gonna go to jail, and, you know, all that this feels really good. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, we don't know how fortunate we are with the lack of controls that we had, that, you know, there weren't funds missing, and, you know, we're, knock on wood, there wasn't, the money all seems to be there, so, thank you. Good work.
Thanks, Ellie. Thanks,
Thank you.
First team.
Thank you, Ellie.
Okay. It doesn't say we need to accept that, we just had the presentation, right? So we don't need to log it or anything, is that correct?
No action.
There's no action suggested there, so I guess we received it. Nonetheless, thank you. We'll move to appropriations. Would anyone care to pay the bills?
So moved.
Support.
There was the budget. Okay. More questions? Good luck. We used to have money kids.
At the end of that.
I think we have motion support, so all those in favor would be yes.
Yes.
Any opposed would be no. We'll pay the bills. Thank you. Commissioner comments. Michelle, would you like to go first?
Just again, thanks to Curtis and his team. A lot of hours. Came in kicking and you're going strong, so thanks.
Okay. Nick?
Just the same, congratulations to Curtis's team. Thank you very much.
Roxanne?
Again, good job, and thanks, Ellie, for sticking with us. The years were so good, I thought you'd say I'm not doing this anymore, so I appreciate you sticking with us and all your help. So.
She did say she wasn't working New Year's Eve ever again.
Well,
She warned me that already.
Yes,
so.
I did.
Good. It's good to set limits, so, but thanks to everybody.
Danny?
Just again, thanks to Curtis and congrats to those in fire that got those promotions. It's good to see.
Roger?
I hope that this is a harbinger of how this year is gonna go. This is a nice way to start out a new year. As I said, this feels a lot better than it has in the past, and I hope that this is just a sign of good things to come. A great year. Thank you.
Sarah? Tony?
I missed you guys, you know. Happy New Year, everybody. I'm with Roger. Looking for a great 2022.
The bar has been low. It's gotta get better, right? It's gotta get better.
I feel confident.
Yes, I agree.
Up till now, it's been, let's get through this.
Eric?
No, just Curtis and working with them and Marilyn and everybody that's come on recently. It's been a pleasure to work with. Obviously, I'm learning a lot from them too, so appreciate everything they've done, and it's nice to be able to walk into a meeting and take an exit. It is nice, so thanks, and thanks to all the staff. Appreciate it.
And I would echo the same thing, it is a great relief to see finally some positive news in our, I was hoping for an improved report, but it's actually exceeded my expectations. I was just hoping for some improvement. I was hoping to, just hear a report that we got all our bank recs done. It would have been a big improvement over last year, so kudos to you and your team, Curtis. Like I said, we don't want you working everybody to death, though. We appreciate what's done, and please pass that on to everybody. And again, congratulations to those promoted and those that are stepping up to fill roles within the city on a volunteer basis or a paid basis, either one. So with that, we'll invite the public to comment. Not that there's much public here, but
I do want to say one more thing. So I will.
You may.
I live on Iowa Street. Do I have to just say Curtis answer Iowa Street? Finance director. Just because I know I gave Marilyn and Madison their props too, and I just wanted to take a quick moment too to recognize Amy, and Amy and Beth, but I want to specifically talk about Amy right now because in April when we were going through all this transition and Beth was sick and was not available for us, there was about a 6-week stretch here where Amy and I were literally the only two in the department, and Amy took on way more responsibility than I think she even will acknowledge that she did, because there was absolutely no way, as we were trying to transition and bringing Marilyn on board and bringing everybody else up to speed. I mean, there, like I said, there was about a 6-week stretch there where we literally had basically her here running the show and with me, and I'd only been here like 4 months at the time, so I leaned on her more than she would ever realize. So I just wanted to take a moment to make sure that I gave her her due diligence too, because there was a while there that I'm not sure what the city would have done if Amy wouldn't have been here. So I just wanted to make sure that was on the record too, that I really appreciate what she did.
Thanks, Curtis, for letting us know.
I guess now that I mention that, or I hear that too, I think we do owe a bit of gratitude to the city of St. Louis. I think they shared some expertise with us as well.
Bobby has been
From their
instrumental,
financial-
and
yeah,
I have very much, I've talked to her twice today. I still reach out to Bobby. She's been very instrumental in helping get me up to speed and helping whenever we have questions, and helped with our tax settlement and stuff, so.
And that's great. I certainly want to acknowledge that and I appreciate it. And I believe there was a compensation arrangement with St. Louis. Is that continuing? If we're still getting advice from them.
At this point, we have not utilized her to do anything on like where she's actually looking at our numbers. It's more just mentor questions on I would reach out to ask a specific question. If we were to, I would assume if we were to do anything where she was incurring any significant amount of time, other than just asking, like answering questions or picking her brain at a meeting, then we would, but she has not put in any, like, when she was actually helping look at our books and looking at our text and all that stuff, we compensated her for all of that, but as of the last few months, it's been more just a typical pick your brain on a specific issue, so.
Just a good neighbor thing then, it sounds like, and just might want to check with her, make sure she doesn't feel that she is owed some sort of compensation, or that the council or the management over there is not, we're not overextending or over asking. You know, we want to make sure we take care of them for the good things they've done for us, so we certainly appreciate that for them and the support that they gave you. I know she was good about it, so we appreciate it.
If memory serves right also, I think Amy was the first winner of the Attaboy coin that Matt gave out. I think she was the first one who got one of those. That was a few years back and continues, obviously, well deserved.
Okay. Anybody else care to address the commission? Last chance. With that, we'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Support. Motion support. All those in favor be yes?
Yes.
Any opposed, no. We are adjourned. Thank you very much.